Very much.
Sorry, what was that?
Didn't sound like an hour, does it?
Right. Do we have any members of the public? We don't, so there's no public participation. Let's get straight on to the details then. Apologies for absence. We've got Caroline Reynolds replaced by Gemma Coles. We've got Helen Thornton replaced by
Nobody.
just apologies. Martin Williams replaced by Roger Bailey. Any others? No. Right. Item 2, declaration of interest. Any? None. Item 3, to appoint. To note the appointment. Chair and Vice Chair. Any comments? No. 4, confirmation of the committee terms of the reference, pages 1 to 2. Anybody want to challenge that? No, they are confirmed. Item 5, to agree the accuracy of the previous minutes. Could I have somebody propose, somebody second? All those in favour? Any against? No, right, so the town clerk will now allow me to sign. She instructed me not to sign before the meeting.
Confirmed by you who's proposing the seconding, it sounds quite a total.
Sorry.
Councillor Crewe and Councillor Armstrong, very forward, thank you.
Right. That's done, thank you. Item 6, the draft notes of the allotment community consultative group meeting. This is to receive the draft notes. Are we being asked to do anything other than receive them, to receive them? Any comments? No, thank you. Item 7, to approve the draft notes of the Heritage Arts and Culture Community Consultative Group meeting, pages 12 to 16. Any discussion on this? Would somebody care to propose we accept them? I will, and will somebody second?
No, unfortunately.
You will.
Who was that, sorry, the second chat?
Peter. Oh, no, Peter wasn't there.
No,
No. Right.
That's the same then, thank you.
So, which leads us on to item 8. To approve the Ministry's Culture and Leisure Committee annual working programme, pages 17 to 23. Do you want to say anything on this?
Yeah, just to say that this is a follow-on from feedback received with regard to your forward plans and the plan disc that we used to bring to you, the circle. So we've kind of taken on board your feedback, and this is that document in a schedule rather than on disc. We'll keep the disc for our internal use because we can merge discs and see where we've got crossovers, but for individual committees we do appreciate that it wasn't clear or particularly user friendly either on the screen or in your pack because of the size and the detail in there. So this is that same piece of work just in a different format for you. This, as the document says, relates to your terms of reference. So this is making sure that we cover everything in your terms of reference over the course of the year. I think it's important to say it's a flexible programme. So that does mean that we can add to it. It means we can remove reports if we are not, or defer reports if we're waiting for further information. But it does give a really good indication of what we know you've got coming up over the course of this year from previous resolutions, and obviously the legal elements, which are budgets and Christmas activities that have to be done at certain points. So that's the programme that's been put together.
Yeah. Question on a fairly straightforward business plan, isn't it? So, yep. Okay, we need to have that approved. Peter, thank you. Somebody second. Yep. There. Those in favour? Any against? That's passed. Let's move on then to item 9, the museum. It's a fairly lengthy report from the officers. Came about, of course, at the last meeting, you may remember, we suggested that we need, after 10 years now, the museum, since its refurbishment a decade ago, part of it which probably now need to be looked at again in terms of where we go from here. There are some very clear, quick win improvements we could make at relatively little expense. And then there are more expensive projects, which would be for future planning. The paper is, I have to say from the officer's point of view, it's a thorough paper, which I presume everybody has read. I've created a memoir, some photographs which I've put around. It might help to encourage some thoughts about the sorts of things we might need to be considering. By no means are these being put forward today as something we've got to determine, but just to give you something to think about. And what I would like to happen is if we could establish a museum project group, a small museum project group, to look at the officer report and work out where it is we might be able to make some advances, and then come back to this committee, and from here then to F&GP with any propositions for the future, certainly the bigger propositions. And I think it would be useful if we were to say to a council as a whole that any members who are really interested in the museum, they don't have to be a member of this committee. They could come along and be part of this museum project group, which won't have any authority to determine anything, but will be able, as a small working group, to sit down with relevant officer and then report back to this committee. So I'd like your support if we can do that. I've already had, fortunately, members from each of the three parties saying they would be quite interested in, people who are interested in museums, in joining this working group. So, Peter.
Yeah, Chairman, I think that's the best way forward. If we look back, you and I, well, and Sarah have been involved with the museum for so many years, but there are things you walk in and you look at now and think, there are quick fixes, things which will improve what we see, which will get more footfall, because sometimes you just need a bit more space for exhibitions and so on, but slightly different layout. We've got a super kitchen which was installed some time ago, which is good for functions, but we don't make full use of it because we don't do enough. But that's secondary to getting people in the door to look at the exhibitions and look at the history. That's the most important. Catering is a follow-on bit, but we can improve that as well. And I think, yes, a working party, as we started last time, Chairman, I think it's a very sensible way to have 4 or 5 members that are interested in the museum, that know the museum and could help take it forward with quick fixes and then look at long term as well.
Yep.
We're getting as much as we can do in the next 12 months.
Any further comments? I've been through the finance. I'm not very good at finance, so pick me up if I'm wrong. But looking at these on pages 37 and 38, or 60 and 61, whichever way you're paginating it. Especially looking at the budget headings, they very, very roughly speaking, the museum takes £500,000 a year to run, very roughly speaking, and we get £250,000, roughly speaking, income. We're therefore left with another £250,000, which seems to be soaked up with central costs.
And there are some errors in those figures, Chairman.
And that's a very sort of basic way of looking at the finances. What I have noted is that, interestingly, on the cafe side, taking all of the cafe sales and bar income and food income, that whole thing is making a profit of getting on for £8,500 a year. If we then look at the shop, and we might all have different views on the shop, that seems to be making a profit.
So they're budgeted figures for this year. That's your revenue budget for this year. That's not figures achieved. That's what we are saying you're going to, that's what we're aiming to achieve.
Is this because these are figures that are realistic figures?
They're based on
with
what
the
they're
progress of,
GP
yeah,
and what we are known figures and targets in order to keep the deficit of the museum. So the surplus to the support to the museum is £369,413 estimated for this.
So if everything proceeds as we think it will, choose my words a little more accurately then. The sale of foodstuffs in the cafe will net us 8,000 plus profit if it goes according to the way it's currently going. The shop will also net getting up to 9,000 profit if it goes according to the way it's going. And the events will net 5,500 as a profit.
That's for bookings themselves, not for the catering element of the bookings, which comes through the cafe code.
Yes,
So if there's a wedding, the catering and the bar for the wedding goes through the cafe, because that
indeed.
function need was always known in our business model needing to prop up the cafe, because the cafe will not break even if it's just the cafe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it's catering.
it's catering.
So that looks
That's like I said,
quite healthy, doesn't it?
that's a budget figure, so it's got to perform.
Yes,
And at the 6 month point, that will be reported back up through you, I think, in your programme and through FNGP on that every other month cycle we report in that.
and are you confident that that is the way, given last year, the way it is moving? When does this change from being wishful thinking into something which is based
I think
on past performance?
the September, it's difficult with the museum, because we know if it's a dry, hot summer, the museum will be quiet and the water park will be absolutely rammed, and that has never changed.
Yeah.
If it's a wet summer, we can expect to see more revenue coming through the museum, and the water park won't be. So it is very seasonal. So it is based on that element. By September, we'll have an indication of how the summer is going, so how much extra work needs to be done over those winter months to build back any revenue that hasn't perhaps come through in that first 6 months because of the seasonal weather trend. So are these figures pie in the sky? No, they're achievable, but there are factors which will need to be considered at different points in the year to as whether the seasonal trends, for example, have had impact. Things like functions on weddings, whether we've had the weddings in. If we do not get those weddings and extra functions in, then the cafe will not do that kind of income. That is what we know. So, but we will know those figures by the halfway point. We'll have a real good indication of.
So we come back in the autumn.
Yeah.
We'll
know what we need to do.
different indication. Yeah. Peter, you're happy with that?
Yeah, just, I'll say some of these figures are, don't actually match. If you go through the year end, we did well at the cafe, but also you need to take account of the fact that over and above that, we do carry around about £30,000 of stock for the cafe. So when you look at that, that's netted off. So if you actually looked at the stock we had in hand, we did far better. So you can always look at whether we do the stock the right way, whether we stand for, how we get it in, and so on. So there is room for that, but we did make profit last year.
So these are budget figures.
Yeah, I'm talking about the actual figures last year.
So actual figures last year. So these are our budgeted revenue margins. They're not full accounts in terms of the iron on the balance sheet, which goes into the balance sheet for the council. We don't produce balance sheets for each individual service. So you're not correct, but in terms of how we monitor and how you do on your income expenditure balancing, you wouldn't see that in there.
No, but year-end figures I had sent had it broken down, including the stock.
Including stock?
Yeah.
You don't usually do that, so maybe it's on the year end, because I will check, but thank you, I've never seen that myself, that's why I'm questioning, but that's fine, I can have a look and we can get together afterwards, show me what you've seen.
Gemma?
Yeah, so they're not really profit figures, really, they're more indication of turnover, because we've got no breakdown here of what's in the expenditure for the cafe. So it's very hard to look at this and say, actually, the profit's made 9,000, the cafe's made £9,000 profit, because
We don't know.
you can't, we don't know the recipe of where the losses come from for the rest of it.
So in terms of that, all councillors get their budget sent to them at the beginning of the year. The full breakdown of what that's made up of is in your budget figures and on the INE reports that come up through FNGP. So we can certainly send those around. For the purpose of this, it was an indication of what your finances are looking like at the start of. But if you want us to get into more detail, we can certainly do that at this meeting. It is overseen by FNGP, but there's no reason why you can't have oversight of it here. We can bring those to this committee if it is there, but the information has been sent out to members in various forms, so.
It is useful to be able to say in conversation with people, when they say, oh, do you make anything out of a cafe or not, or is it subsidised, or so there's a clear answer. Do you make anything out of the functions? Where is the non-profit making element in a museum? It's clearly the museum, isn't it? Because museums don't make profit, but then we're selling goods which are making profit. So,
Do you want the performance breakdown brought to the financial performance brought to the next committee, Chair, just so we can?
in a nice, simple way, but somebody like,
It'd be the
I can
normal IE
understand
report
that.
that you, those of you that have sat on F&GP will see the same report. There's no point in us really,
no,
just provide what, but.
well done.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just ask, is the idea of a working party the same as a start and finish committee?
So,
Is that what we're putting?
no,
As a
so,
technical
so to be clear, you cannot set up a working group and you cannot set up a start and finish group from this committee. What you can do is recommend one, if there is a wish for that, to be set up by full council. That's how that works.
Okay,
However, I would suggest that you set up a museum project members briefing and familiarisation sessions for this project. So we can just set up a group of councillors who have who are familiarising themselves and who are understanding history from, as Councillor Crew said, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of limitations in the building, there's a lot of opportunities which we've prepared for in phase one. So it would be an informal group of councillors
I
that can
thought
just
there
have
was-
an understanding.
I thought there was a schedule of council meetings that were pre-set.
So you
and
have
that
to take that through
includes
to
start
town
and finish
council.
group.
So you can, but you've got to recommend that to town
I
council.
understand.
Which is why I've worded it such that it's going to be a museum project group set up by this committee to report back to this committee rather than being
It would be
a
informal,
working
it
party.
wouldn't be agendas, there wouldn't be
completely
minutes.
informal.
I've got one other point. We're talking about profit and loss. Is the objective, as I understood it, not the objective to cut costs necessarily,
That's not,
but to move it to perhaps another stage, to move it forward?
precisely,
Okay,
yeah.
so it's not the focus, but it's
No,
part of
and
it.
hence those
Obviously.
photographs help you to
Yeah.
understand the sort of area that I was looking at, thinking it might help if I produced that so we could just see. But it's not exclusive, it's just,
Yes,
starting to, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered, obviously, the visitor numbers is really helpful. I thought it was a really good report. I just wondered if we'd got any positive feedback from visitors and we've ever surveyed them in terms of what, because obviously I think that the visitor view should be really important in any review of what the public's saying.
I think it'd be important that the museum project group establish it, and get my words correct, it's not a working part, yeah,
yes,
establishes such things as, yes, we need to consult with other people. I mean, I'm thinking of organisations which use the museum, and therefore they have as it were, a hands-on experience of it, and then there may be outside bodies as well. So it's not limiting, it's not attempting to be at all exclusive. It's as broad as possible. And because the project group won't have the authority to decide anything, whatever it highlights comes back here as a report for this group, this committee then to determine.
I think
I think we just need an ability for colleagues who are interested in the museum and its progress to be able to sit down with other colleagues and a couple of officers and just come up with ideas, bouncing ideas off one another, bringing back here. So, yeah.
The museum, the success of the museum is highly dependent on volunteers.
Very much.
And I'm curious about the number of active volunteers seems to have dropped off after steadily climbing. Just a little bit concerned about that, and just wondered if there was, like, it might come down to just a particular group who no longer involved?
So I think there is always a
Oh, sort of
natural, there's always natural fluctuations up and down. But I think fundamentally, one of the things that we do now, all of our volunteers can volunteer across all sites. So
Right.
whereas before, when we launched this in 2017, when we relaunched the whole volunteer culture, and we've got 207 volunteers that work for us. And that's an average monthly that work for us across many different departments. And we opened it up, instead of saying you sign up to volunteer for the museum, you sign up to volunteer for the fridge, you sign up to, we now say they can volunteer everywhere. And actually some of those volunteers that were working in the museum are now working, for instance, we've had a number of those volunteers go and work and do some history work in the cemetery because there's more to do. So some of them have moved around because they naturally can, as well as the fluctuations in people have got jobs. Some of them were elderly and, can't perhaps do what they did anymore. And they might have done it for 10 years and they would love to still be doing it, but there is an element of that. So there's lots of different factors, but we can bring you that. And I think that the project group, if you like, it's about familiarisation with all of these different elements. It's about, we can sit down, we can give you those volunteer numbers. There's certainly qualitative data, there's social impact data, there is, I can give you information to the nth degree about parameters of what the building can do and what we've already, as I said, prepared for in phase 1 in readiness for phase 2. So there's some quick wins there. There's certainly considerations around numbers and fire risk and all of those things. So I think this familiarisation, whereas I've got that information, Molly's came in after it was open and has gained a lot of information. Councillor Crewe was there, Councillor Bottle was there, all the way through. So it'd probably be good to familiarise those that are interested in all of that information. Just have coffee. We can sit upstairs in the function suite, and we can just brainstorm with some charts. What about this? What about, and come back to this committee with some actions and some points. So kind of that session of understanding what do you think would be useful to bring back, and then we bring it back here for formal discussion rather than making decisions there. This is probably a very sensible way to approach something.
Possible to maybe have some volunteer involved in.
Yes.
Absolutely. I've been interested in those. I'm in the museum at least 2 or 3 times a week. There seems to be an increasing number of younger people.
Yes,
coming
very
on.
good young
It's,
ones. Yeah.
enthusiastic, and it just gives a different feel to the place.
I was just saying, I think if we have the first session where we just familiarise ourselves, and then absolutely we can bring people in and have end-up discussions as we go along. But I'm just mindful of what would be the why in the first
Yes.
session if we're just walking around showing the buildings.
First thing is for us to walk around. There are parts of the museum which I suspect many colleagues won't actually have seen because they're behind closed doors and not in use. So we just need to wander around. Oh yes, what's in that cupboard? What's in that room?
And Faye and I are both key holders, so we'll keep this at a senior level rather than involving all of the staff, because of course if that can cause sometimes, oh, what we're doing.
Yes, yes.
Because
Gemma.
Just where I was on the sheet. So I think I am slightly concerned about the numbers and the costs of everything, and I think we would be naive. I mean, if the volunteer, there's no cost in there for what the volunteers would cost us. If that's what it's costing, and we're currently using a large number of volunteers to staff it and manage it, it is slightly concerning. And I just think it would be really good to get this set up. For example, if there was a change of political makeup and the priorities became slightly different, that's quite a good way of cutting money, isn't it? So I do think this is quite an important, considering it's a big expenditure, that we do look at it quite soon.
So I think absolutely, I think to be really clear, the museum can function, open the doors and do its activities without the volunteers. So that is why there's a huge amount of money in staffing costs there. So it's the second biggest team in the council in terms of paid employees. The doors can open. What it can't do is the added extras. So in terms of, those meet and greets, all of those things supporting the cafe. Could the cafe still operate? Yes, it could. would you wait, could you wait 5 minutes rather than 2 minutes? It's those kind of added extras, but it still can function. That was always in the remit of how this model is set up, so it is to enhance what we're doing, not to be reliant on what we're doing with
We've
volunteers.
got data on, like peak times of day and
Yeah.
staff hours and stuff.
Yes, we can do all that. So we have the familiarisation session where you can literally throw all these things at us, or we can do it now. It's entirely up to you.
Do it then, rather.
Yeah, is that you can give us a list of stuff to bring to the session, or we can go to the session and literally tell you everything we know and then write lists of stuff to bring back. It's entirely up to you how you want that to pan out.
Yeah. Okay with that? Yeah. Peter?
Chairman, I think you also have to look at the fact, as you and I know, the enthusiasm that we have with these volunteers. They call us up saying, no, we ought to do this, they come up with ideas all the time.
Yes.
I mean, I can remember, I've been involved in two lots. I created the volunteers at the Playhouse when it came under me on North Somerset. And that now, they just beat us. I think their latest number is 230 volunteers. So they're just ahead of us, but we're getting there. And I think it's enthusiasm that I find that I talk to all the time. And I talk to them outside of here because someone lives near me. So very often they say, oh, come in for a coffee. So, and they come up with ideas. Why don't we do this? So it's actually working quite well.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah. Anything else? So would you accept the recommendation then that we establish, I'm looking for the words, the museum project group,
Yeah.
and it reports back to this committee. It has no authority to do anything, but it comes back.
And we put a date on it, we'll report back in the next
So the
meeting.
next meeting.
If your instruction is that it reports back to the next meeting,
Well, it's
Make
a
that an
suggestion. For
make it
everything else
an
to
instruction
agree.
and it will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, we'll be,
Chair, can I suggest if we've got any names that we know of, if not, I will send it through to group leaders and
Yes.
ask you to nominate anybody that's interested
Yes.
within each political group. Because
I
there
think
may
that-
well be some
yeah.
already in place, as you've indicated, but if I go through group leaders, which would be the normal way to
Yeah,
get
that's fine.
membership, and then we can ask everybody. You don't need to be on this committee to be on part of this group, I would suggest.
I have to say, that so far, people from each of the three groups have expressed an interest to me, which is pleasing. So, and I don't personally care whether they're members of this committee or not. I just want people who are councillors and are interested in the museum. And
Yeah.
could I be slightly controversial and say, we don't want any passengers,
Quite right.
people who turn up and don't actually, well, no, I won't go there. You know what I mean?
Chairman, we've got a lot to do in a short time to do it.
So we
And
have the vote.
if we aim to bring a report to the next meeting, because you would like one, that I think is, I think
I
that's
think,
fair.
I think it's only right that we do if there's
Yeah,
a meeting beforehand. Yeah.
It keeps us on ball.
Have we had the vote, John?
Not yet.
We haven't had the vote yet.
That we haven't, so would you please, I will propose, somebody, that's, those in favour, please show. Unanimous, thank you very much. Remind me that it's a report for the next meeting,
Yeah,
Yeah,
we will pull that
we're
together.
absolutely on the ball with that.
We'll pull that together for
Good.
you as officers once we've come out. of
Item
session.
10, Western Art Space, this really is simply to receive the report, isn't it, rather than,
Well, I'm
do
actually
you want
looking,
to add anything?
no, it's not just to receive it, it's, I need you to
Approve,
approve it's very woolly, it's anybody that applies for grants, that we've got the art space sub-lease for them is based on what they required for their WEPA funding, and it meets with the terms of our 35-year lease with North Somerset and has been agreed as such. They are very much funded organisation, they require grant funding, and the lease is relatively short on that basis, so we can't commit the council past what it's already agreed. We can recommend that we extend the lease, but that's probably not needed or very long-winded at this point in time. However, we could, as I've written in Appendix 1, just give them some assurance without tying, without binding, that's our intention based on the current strategy, the current aims we've got for the quarry, our funding and condition of use from North Somerset all meets what they want to do. they're just wanting a little bit of where they can have a little bit of. The current feeling would be, why wouldn't we continue the relationship after the end of the lease? As I said, without tying it to, you know, something happens in between now and then that could be adopted. So if you're happy, I will send appendix A is what I'm looking for, a recommendation to on
Page
68 there.
65 to 70.
Yeah.
Anyone care to propose? I'll propose it.
Yeah,
Seconded.
fine.
Those in favour? Any against? None, like that. Then we've got item 11,
We need to
Which
do
I've
it following.
which I've already asked about. Why is this followed?
So, yeah,
and there is a reason for it.
Yeah, there is absolutely a reason for it. So you approved, but we went ahead and did it. I had an initial meeting where we went round and discussed the scope. We brought that report back to you and it was to develop that play strategy. At the same time, Faye has now come back in and Faye is the lead officer on this. I was holding that while she was there. The play people were on holiday and it coincided with Faye coming back. So Faye met with them in between the agenda going out and now, hence why it is verbal. This is an update. It's not for any decision making. And Faye will type up her findings and send them around to the committee afterwards. So it's a timing issue, but it did feel prudent to give you an update because this is quite an important project that's going in. If Faye has got that chair, you'll.
And that's just to receive it, isn't it? We're not being asked to do it.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Faye's got the update for you.
So I met with Michael and Liz who are carrying out the work. And they have done a timeline, which I'll send round to everybody, the purpose of what they are actually doing. They've already made some good headway. I've provided them, so it's not just going to focus on the town council's assets, it's looking at the broader offer of what play facilities we've got, courts, all of that kind of stuff. So they'll be looking at what Hutton Moor has, everything that is in the town. So they're going to be working with North Somerset Council officers, Carly Phillips, who's in the leisure team, Ed Mackay for the open spaces, and they're going to be working with other organisations as well, with bands, with Dave Crossman, because they've got some money for play equipment, for play sport. So it was a really positive meeting. And they've set out a timeline so that they will be able to update for each of the amenities meetings. And they hope that the work, so the completion of the report will be the 30th of October. So they've set themselves this timeline and they will keep us updated along the way. They're also happy to come and do a session and come and meet with councillors, but there'll be quite a bit of involvement. So if you are contacted by them, it would be this for that information, the thoughts and views. So.
Thanks, Faye. Any questions of Faye? You're happy with that? Peter?
Just to mention, Chairman, that suddenly the police have money and they're willing to fund sports events, equipment and so on in Weston. So at the moment, they're looking at funding, turning the one at the campus, the BMX track into a fully operating new one. And they've got some money to do other things. That's from the PCC, which I found out a couple of days ago.
So that would be useful to have that
Liaise with,
information, because I'll give that to Michael, because they're having a look at all of the funding that's out there. And seeing what grants are out there and where things can be worked on, and the Pride of Place, they're making contact with them for Bourneville, so they're really going far and wide.
And the reason I mention that, Chairman, is because when we had the people that went and looked at what we should take over in North Somerset, they said, no, don't take over that area. But if the police are willing to give us some money to do it, maybe we need to rethink that one.
Okay, well, wherever there's cash, we're pretty good as a councillor.
Probably lose change for after buying Castlewood.
Don't mention Castlewood. Yeah. Well, that's it, isn't it? Well, that's There's no such thing as any other. Did you want to mention the bleeding?
Yes, if I may say, so do you want to finish the meeting first and I'll
Oh,
mention this after?
that is the end, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've finished the meeting.
The meeting has finished. Yeah.
No, we stop before that.
Very good.
Switch the owl off.